I had never expected my life to get tangled up with something so ridiculous. You know how life throws curveballs when you least expect it? Yeah, well, this one hit me square in the face, and it all started with a trash can. I know, sounds trivial, right? But trust me, this story spiraled into something much bigger. It all began one morning when I noticed our trash bin had been dragged halfway up our driveway, lid flung wide open like it had been ransacked. At first, I thought maybe it was some random mistake, or maybe someone had gotten confused during their morning rounds. But as I stood there, blinking at the mess, I saw her, the woman who would change everything. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood. I had only been living in this place for a couple of months, newly married to my wife, Elena. We had just moved in, still unpacking, still figuring out where the couch was supposed to go, and apparently, still figuring out how to keep the trash can from becoming an HOA battleground. So, there I was, standing at the edge of the driveway, watching our trash bin, when I saw her. Karen, 3 houses down, standing with her arms folded, scowling like she was guarding a fortress. No greeting, no smile, just that signature look of authority she always wore, like she was an underpaid mall cop on a power trip. "Did you mess with our trash again?" I asked, half laughing, trying to brush it off. But she didn't laugh. In fact, she barely even cracked a smile. "Just returning it to its designated retrieval zone, Section 14, Subsection 9 of the Community Charter," she said, her voice so cold and rehearsed. It sounded like she'd been waiting for an excuse to drop that line for weeks. And that's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just the neighborhood busybody. She was the HOA president. Not elected, mind you. No, she'd taken that position during an unofficial vote, which I later found out was about as legitimate as a carnival game. She had more power than she should have had, and she was using it to enforce every rule like she was handing down some divine decree. I thought it was a joke. I thought, hey, we're just 2 people living in a duplex, barely getting settled in. How bad could this HOA thing be? But I quickly learned I was wrong. Karen's power trip was about to turn my life upside down. Elena had just moved in with me, and her name wasn't even on the mailbox yet. But that didn't stop Karen from getting in our business. The very next day, Karen confronted me while I was pulling weeds from the garden. "I don't see your wife listed on the occupancy forms," she said, all official-like. "How do I know she's not just staying over illegally?" I blinked, thinking I misheard. "Illegally?" I asked, confused. "She's my wife, not a raccoon." But Karen wasn't interested in humor. No, she was serious. "It's my duty to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood," she sniffed, handing me a pink slip. "Our first violation notice. Improper trash placement," it said, as if the garbage truck didn't hit her own mailbox a few years ago and she didn't try to sue the city over it. We just laughed it off. I thought, okay, no big deal. We'll figure it out. But that's where things started to get weird. Over the next week, we got more violation notices. Unauthorized vehicle in the driveway. Elena's car. A decorative flag that wasn't pre-approved. Our pride flag. A notice accusing us of suspicious occupancy. Yeah, that one again. I started realizing this wasn't a coincidence. Karen was relentless. She was on a crusade to enforce every rule, no matter how petty, and we were her targets. It was clear she wasn't just a neighbor. She was the self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood, and we were the rebels. I remember one day, Elena waved to Karen as she was walking past. Karen didn't wave back. Instead, she called a special executive HOA re-VYEW. What kind of person calls a special meeting over a wave? But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst part came when Karen demanded proof that Elena lived here. She actually filed a petition demanding documentation that my wife was a legitimate resident. Can you imagine? This woman was so obsessed, she was willing to drag us through the mud for no reason. The whole thing was laughable until we found out Elena had just purchased both units of our duplex. In cash. Both of them. No mortgage. No bank involved. Just pure ownership. And that, my friends, was the beginning of the end for Karen. The problem was, Karen didn't know that yet. So she kept going, escalating, like a chess player who thought she was making all the right moves. The next morning, we woke up to find a sticky note on Elena's car, demanding that all residents be officially registered. As if she had the power to enforce anything. Elena took a breath, calmly reading the note. "She's not well," Elena said, shaking her head. But I knew this was just getting started. Within 48 hours, Karen had installed a trail camera across the street from our house, pointed directly at our front door. I couldn't believe it. I confronted her, and she didn't even pretend to deny it. "Neighborhood watch," she said, adjusting her ridiculous VY sore. Like she was some sort of superhero. I didn't know whether to laugh or file a restraining order. But things got even worse. Karen filed another complaint, this time with the zoning board, alleging that we were illegally modifying our property. She even included drone footage of our house, drone footage she had illegally recorded. She had crossed a line. But what Karen didn't know was that Elena had already taken care of everything. She had filed ownership paperwork with the county registrar, making sure everything was legit and perfectly documented. Elena had been quietly preparing for this fight the whole time, and when Karen sent that complaint, it was like the universe had just set up a perfect trap. Karen didn't stop there. She sent out an email to the entire neighborhood, warning them about an unauthorized occupant. This was her last attempt to save face. She had underestimated Elena, and now her power was slipping away. But Elena had a plan. She started inviting neighbors over, not with threats, but with wine nights, lawn games, and casual get-togethers. And when the time came, Elena quietly recruited a few of the fed-up neighbors to vote Karen out of her self-appointed HOA presidency. It was time for a change. The vote was overwhelming. Karen didn't stand a chance. In a community meeting, Elena pulled out the ultimate trump card. She didn't just own her unit. She owned the whole property, both units, free and clear. Karen's face turned red as a tomato, and the entire neighborhood started to realize they'd been levying under the thumb of a tyrant. But Elena wasn't done yet. She filed a countersuit against Karen for harassment, illegal surveillance, and defamation. All the while, Karen was desperately trying to hold on to her power. But the more she fought, the worse things got for her. And then came the moment of truth. At the courthouse, Elena was calm, collected, and ready. Karen showed up, decked out in a beige pantsuit, thinking she was going to win. But Elena's lawyer laid out a mountain of evidence, showing Karen's entire pattern of abuse. Elena didn't just win, she obliterated Karen's credibility. Karen's life fell apart in front of her. The judge ruled in our favor, and Karen was forced to publicly apologize to the entire neighborhood. The apology letter went up on the community bulletin board for 90 days, as if to serve as a permanent reminder of her failure. But the real kicker? Karen's house went up for sale at a loss, and she left the neighborhood in disgrace. And as for us, well, Elena took over the HOA, rewrote the rules, and made sure no one would ever have to live under Karen's oppressive thumb again. It wasn't just about winning, it was about restoring the community. Elena made sure of that. And if you think Karen was done after all of that, think again. She didn't go quietly. But it didn't matter. The neighborhood had been freed, and no matter what Karen did next, she'd never be able to control us again. So, now I ask you, what would you do if you were in our shoes? Would you stand up to someone like Karen? Or would you just let it slide? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole thing, whether you agree with how we handled it, or if you would have done things differently. This story isn't just about HOA politics. It's about standing up for what's right. No matter how big the fight,